welcome to another edition of VAFA Tragics. Great to have your company for another week. We've got a huge show lined up for you. It's great to have the footy back as well after another week off for the representative football. I hope you all enjoyed our chat with Michael Sholly last week. It's a very good evening to the panel. Nick Armistead.
Andrew, great to be here once again.
Good to see you back in a white shirt this week. Brenton Mann's on the panel with a very colourful arrangement. How are you, Brenton?
Got on the burgundy shirt. I'm very well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm going beautifully. As we always do, we'll kick it off the performance plays of the week. There were some notable performances on the weekend. Nick, do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. I'm going to Premier B for my performance player of the week. Ajax, David Fayman. He's a superstar full forward down there. He kicked 9 goals on the weekend in his 150th game against the Hampton Rovers. He's been the leading goal kicker multiple times. He's a superstar. Congratulations, David Fayman.
I reckon he'd be close to 500 goals in the VAFA, Fayman. He is a star. Brenton, performance player of the week.
I've got a Latrobe and Mitch Gleeson, who bagged 10 on the weekend. And Mitch hasn't kicked less than 5 goals in the last 5 weeks. So he's absolutely flying in front of the sticks. And Latrobe, with that win, sealed their finals for 2016.
So Fayman kicked how many?
9.
And
Gleeson kicked 10.
Gleeson kicked 10. I'll see your Fayman and Gleeson and I'll raise you a Collins. Dale Collins from Westbourne Grammarians kicked a lazy 17 on the weekend against Chadstone, of course. Now, it was a big game for the Westbourne Grammarians. They kicked 49 goals for the day, but Collins just, any time you're sneaking 17 goals, I reckon you deserve to be Performance Player of the Week. On to the big round of matches in William Buck Premier, and what a section this is turning out to be. Just 6 points separates the top 6 sides on the ladder, with wins coming left, right and centre from the teams maybe you're not expecting to win. And one of those teams that got a win that needed one was St Kevin's, Nick. And you had a look at this game with the news coming on Friday that, of course, John Edgar and St Kevin's were parting ways. The coach moving away, and his co-coach of last year, Daniel Harford, to replace him.
Absolutely. It was a bit of a tumultuous week for St Kevin's, but they've answered the call. They've come back and they've defeated Collegians at Harry Trott Oval, which we know is not an easy thing to do this year. After a really relatively even first term, St Kevin's kicked into action with 3 goals to 1 in the second. Jared Gleeson particularly was fantastic, kicked 2 goals, took a number of contested grabs, and was really the catalyst to their 20-point half-time buffer. Despite the elite run and carry of a young Julian Amutis and Will Tardif dominated once again, the Lions couldn't produce the scoring opportunities in the second half capable of keeping them in the game, as Will Coates and Ash Morris, who are having great years down back for St Kevin's, dominated. Cal Williams was also fantastic in the back half, albeit he was slightly frustrated at times. But his long limbs and his last lunge is an absolute thing of beauty. One thing I love watching about Cal Williams is that you think he may be out of the contest, you think that he might not be able to catch, but he's got the athleticism and those long limbs to bring a player down when you think he's completely gone. So it's fantastic to watch by Cal. Ultimately, St Kevin's are not an overly quick side, so I think that Collegians, the type of stoppage game that they do play, I think that played into their hands on the weekend, because they've got a lot of inside midfielders who do like the contested ball, but it worked pretty well and they kept their very slender finals hopes alive.
They probably need to win their final 5 games. Brendan, what do you make of a coach leaving mid-season like that? And I know that the statement from St Kevin's was complimentary of John's time there. Of course, they were 20-0 with him and Daniel Harford as co-coaches last year when they won the Premier B flag. But it's always a strange one, I find, when a coach leaves halfway through the season.
I'd call it interesting. Interesting is a word for it, especially with their finals hopes just dangling by a thread. It could be a bit destabilising, but obviously it wasn't when they came out and beat Collegians. But we'll just see how that plays out in the latter third of the year.
I think it's well known that a lot of clubs have it in their constitution they have to advertise for the coaching position. My question would be, and I don't know the situation, but my question would be, what if, according to the statement, John wanted some reassurances that he'd be coached next year. Now, that's fine. He knows the constitution. You'd have that every year. But why did he need those reassurances at this point of the year? And if you don't get the reassurances, what do you walk away? Is it I don't quite understand how that's all transpired.
I don't like that. If you've got the runs on the board and you think you're the man for the job, then you apply. And then if you don't get it, well, you don't put your tail between your legs and walk off. So
there would have been a lot of pressure coming. Maybe put it on himself after that loss to Old Carry on Foundation Day. That was obviously the catalyst for what happened, but it did, I guess, take a week and a half still to happen after that loss.
They're in pretty good hands, though. Daniel Harford and Michael Christian will guide them for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, as we may not know, Stephen Salopek and I think Stephen Gillum have been helping out as playing coaches in a way, and yeah, they'll be fine. I think St Kevin's, can they make the 4? We'll wait and see. It's at the end of the day, they're only 2 games out.
It's good to see that.
That's the most amazing thing with the section.
The Richmond VFL connection, Ash Morris and Cal Williams in the best again, so which is fantastic.
Doing wonders down there.
Yeah. Other games, De La Salle and Old Zavarians. I had a look at this game. Old Zavs were back to their best, really, and I know they've been building over the last couple of weeks. A big win over OMs a fortnight ago, and then this win over De La Salle really stamped their authority on the contest early, Zaz, with their fierce tackling pressure. They kicked the first goal of the game. De La Salle responded with a goal, and then Zaz kicked the next 6 to establish a lead that De La Salle never really looked like closing in on. Goss ended up with 6 goals, all of them coming in the second half. Matt Hanley was amazing. He did break his nose, didn't take any further part after 3/4 time, just sitting on the bench for the rest of the game as the game was iced. Nick Serafini has been outstanding off half-back for Zavs, and he just keeps building with every game. And I got my first glimpse live this year of the Johnstons, and they're an impressive trilogy off each lines of for old Zaz. So they're going beautifully, Zaz. They're up to 3rd spot with the win, and look, they'll be a dangerous side come September.
Especially Hanley Gosh, you touched on their combination of 10 goals. They've now kicked 76 between them for the season. They sit 1 and 2. How important are they to their scoring? They're obviously their 2 main pillars, and now after the weekend, Zavs have actually surpassed De La Salle as a top scoring team this year, averaging 86. How important are they?
Oh, they're massively important. I mean, Gossie's an interesting one. I think early in the match against De La Salle, he was trying to do a lot of wrestling, trying to get the ball kicked long to him and that sort of thing. I don't know when there was maybe a change at quarter time. And he started to lead up to the ball and started, or even at half time. And the passing and the skill level of the Zavs midfield was amazing, and they started to hit him lace out on the chest. And I think he's a better player when he's on the lead. He doesn't need to be standing there wrestling and trying to win the ball with strength. He can do that, but I think he gets the confidence to do that by leading up to the ball. Yeah. And he's a beautiful kick for goal, and that combination amazing.
And his second half form is fantastic. A couple of weeks ago, did he kick 5 or 6 after half time? So yeah, it's unbelievable. Yep.
In other games, some sensational goals at Old Kerry and St Bernard's, and Old Kerry couldn't back up with their first win of the season with a win over St Bernard's, but Chris Peart with this magnificent goal in the 3rd quarter, and then anything Peart can do at one end, your love child Sammy Cust, Nick, kicked this absolute stunner from the boundary line, which was featured on the VAFA Facebook page during the week.
Absolutely, have a look at that. He's off balance, he's right on the boundary, about 40 metres out on the outside of his boot. Unfortunately, camera doesn't get it going straight through the goals, but you know what happened, and he is playing some very good football for Kerry.
How many times did you watch that?
I think it's got over 10,000 views, and I'm at least half of them.
I think also that probably rubber stamps Carey's relegation from William Buck Premier. They'd have to win every game by a lot and rely on Collegians and St Kevin's to drop all their games to be a sniff, and I don't think that's likely to happen. With percentage, they still have to win those games and then rely on percentage. So I think they're relegated.
Do you think they took enough confidence out of their win against St Kevin's to actually play a part in the finals by perhaps defeating a couple of teams that will be fighting for that 3rd and 4th spot?
I think they've proven that they're very competitive, and probably they were disappointed with this one against St Bernard's, letting it get away. Maybe they thought we've got the confidence from the win the previous week. But equally, St Bernard's would have been primed for this because they're still trying to fight to avoid relegation.
91 points suggest that they're not going too badly. And they could shape the 4 in the coming weeks.
Oh, they could do.
Yeah.
Uni Blues and Old Trinity was another important game, and the Tees won a 2nd game in a row, and importantly moved it back up to 2nd spot, and only 2 points off top spot from Blues now. We mentioned that condensed ladder. The Tees doing good things. Yetzi got a couple of goals, was important. Still without Polydorus and Nicolosi, and Ripon still not playing for Blues, but an important win for Old Trinity in the context of their season. But the result of the round, no doubt, was Old Melburnians beating University Blacks. Came from a fair way down at 3/4 time, kicked 7 goals to 2, I think, in the last quarter, and came away with the 4 points and a huge win for OMs, and they're right in the finals hunt too.
They just will not go away. It's fantastic for the OMs, and as you can see, Will Thompson kicked the first 2 goals, which brought it back to about even at the start of that 4th, and then Al Armstrong snagged a couple as well with a couple of 1s and 2s here from Matty Thomas. But fantastic last quarter, and they're definitely going to shake. They're not out by any means, and they're definitely going to shake.
Their best is good enough. Just if they can produce it on a consistent basis, then they're going to be right there.
On that note, we'll take a break from William Buck Premier. We'll come back with more on VAFA Tragics.
Anytime is the right time to get fit at Anytime Fitness. Access over 400 gyms across the country 24/7 and discover why more Australians train at Anytime Fitness than any other gym. Go online and register now for your free 7-day pass and feel something better.
Welcome back to the Tragic. It's time now for the headlines. Here's Nick Armstead.
Thank you, Andrew. Round 14 of VAFA Action will play host to the VRGF round and highlight the importance of responsible gambling. Due to recent rapid increase in sports betting and gambling, community concern is growing about how these forms of gambling are influencing young people. 10 VAFA clubs, including the Umpires Association, plan to bring attention to this concern by supporting this initiative. If you or someone who you care about has an issue with gambling or are looking for further information or advice, call Gamblers Help on the number on the screen or go to gamblinghelponline.org.au. VAFA field umpire David Winlow will officiate his 1,000th game this weekend after a career spanning more than 43 years. Commencing in 1973, milestones David has achieved include 21 Club 18 Grand Finals as a field umpire, 9 Club 18 Grand Finals as a goal umpire, and another 4 Club 18 Grand Finals as a boundary umpire. VAFA Media will cover David's story in more depth later in the week, but congratulations on such a fantastic milestone. The Big V Club Lunch inductees for 2016 have been announced, with Old Scotch legend Peter Sherwin and DLR star Michael Devison set to join an illustrious group of Big V stars. Both will be inducted into the Big V Club at a lunch function at the RACV Club on August 5, and tickets for the lunch can be purchased from the VAFA website. And that's it for this week's headlines.
It's a great result for Peter Sherwin, of course, the father of Scott Sherwin, who became a Big V representative in recent seasons as well, the Old Scotch skipper. On to Premier B. Speaking of Old Scotch, Brenton.
You're getting very good at your segues, Andrew. Now we'll go with Old Scotch, who went down to Monash Blues by a miserly 2 points at Camberwell Sports Ground, despite being unable to register a goal in the first term and trailing by 11 at three-quarter time. The Blues galvanised in the fourth and ran over Old Scotch by 2 points. Led by Andre Hedbury, who kicked 4, Adam Johnson, who kicked 3, and the Blues nailed 6 goals to 3 and subsequently jumped into the 4. And now on the back of that hard-fought victory. Scotchies have now lost 3 of their past 4, and looking at maybe staying in Prem B, possibly in for 2017. Now they've got a lot of work to do in the run home, so hopefully the Scotchies can rustle up some motivation, some momentum, and try and drive into the finals.
Jack has had win. Fitzroy went down, and so they dropped out of the 4. The Roys, there's still a shot to try and play finals. The Vultures went down in a local derby to St Bede's Mentone, and Old Haileybury went down to Beaumaris after they headed the Sharks early on. Nick, you had a look at Premier C, and equally some interesting results there.
Absolutely. Well, Q, 4-goal deficit at the first break was not enough to stop them, as they inflicted Mazenod's second consecutive loss and subsequently took them off the top of the ladder. 9-1 in the final 3 quarters told the story of the Bears' dominance, as they just absolutely dominated, to be fair, after the first quarter. Mazenod didn't kick a goal from the first quarter through Q2 or Q3. Q4, they kicked their next goal, so they kicked 5 points in those 2 middle quarters. And Salle starred in the best on-ground performance alongside Timmy Allman and Jack Delbridge, while Rob Mann, the skipper of Mazenod, fought hard all day.
Interesting scenario taking shape in Premier C, with 4 teams potentially facing in a relegation fight, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in the coming weeks as well. On to the division report, Brenton. Talk to us about what's happening in the divisions, because Division 1 is equally with William Buck Premier just got the most fascination about it, I think, of the sections at the moment.
It certainly does, at both ends of the ladder, and we'll call it the relegation race. Some call it Big Boy Month, some call it, I don't know what anyone else calls it, but it's the 5 weeks to go, and we're going to concentrate on Div 1 and the relegation between Parade, Brunswick, Nobs and Pats, and Prahran Assumption. They're the 3 that are facing relegation. Now, we've got Parade in 8th position, who are on 14 points with 3 wins. Nobs in 9th position with 12 points and 3 wins. And Prahran Assumption with 2 wins and on 10 points. Now, importantly for Parade and Prahran, they drew earlier in the year, so those 2 points could become vital. Now, the good thing for Parade, which I touched on...
If they're both there, how are they vital?
Could be detrimental.
Detrimental.
It could be detrimental.
Both in the same situation.
Just poke holes in my theory. That's so fantastic. I had to rush here and put this together. And now the good thing for Parade, as I was saying a couple of weeks ago, they've got 3 home games in the run home, so that's fantastic for them. But they do face St Mary's, Old Mentone, and Old Geelong, and possibly Ivanhoe in the last round, who are going to be wrestling for that final spot. So it's up in the air at the moment. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say Prahran and Nobs will be relegated, and Parade will hang on.
At the other end of the table, there's another ladder leader in Division 1, or is it?
Yes, Old Mantonians, a game clear now on top of the ladder. When I said a few weeks ago that maybe their wheels have fallen off, they're not off. They're back on.
One thing I wanted to discuss with you guys about the divisions, I overstepped this news a couple of weeks ago. The VAFA board announced the decision that 3 teams will be relegated from Division 3. So to orchestrate having 10 teams in Divisions 2, 3 and 4 over the next season. Or with a view to maybe there could be more teams in Division 4, but they wanted to get a 10-team competition happening in Division 3. And to do that, they made the decision to say, well, 3 teams will be relegated from Division 3 to help facilitate that. Obviously, that would have come as a bit of a surprise to maybe Aquinas, who's currently occupy that 3rd spot from bottom in Division 3. What's your take on it?
I think it's a positive. I think, if you even out Division 2, 3 and 4, make it 10 teams each, it's a massive positive. It's going to take a bit of getting used to, I think. And obviously, you see the Aquinas there maybe not liking it. I'm not sure. They might like it. Who knows? But it's going to iron out a few inconsistencies.
Is it a decision that could have been made earlier?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know why they waited so long, the VAFA. Maybe you're from headquarters. Maybe have you heard anything in the rumblings in the corridors of headquarters that...
Every decision needs to be thought through thoroughly.
So that's a long few board meetings,
I think...
But I know you've got a theory on this.
No, I do. And I think first and foremost, the decision should have been made earlier. And I understand that they've got to go through all the processes and all that sort of thing. And I understand that they've got to look and do their research. But this was something that was known about in February when Monash Griffins pulled out of Division 2, sorry. So we knew that this scenario could have eventuated where it was likely they wanted to get a 10-team competition in each of those sections. Yeah. So maybe it could have been fast-tracked a little bit better. I know the board of volunteers and it does become hard, but I feel like it probably could have been made quicker. Having said that, I think that why wouldn't we have just, instead of relegating 3 teams, only promoted 1 team from Division 4? So rather than having both the Premier and the runner-up from Division 4 go up, only have the Premier going up, which if you're just going by ladder positions, that's Westbourne Grammarians at the moment. Point Cook would, on ladder positions would be runner-up at this stage. Yeah. Obviously, you've got to take finals into occasion, and there's so many final surprises we've seen in Division 4. And then have your 2 teams relegated from Division 3 and your 2 teams promoted. You take 4 out, that comes back to 8. 1 team coming down, Richmond Central, it looks like, from Division 2 at this stage. 1 team going up, and it's a bit fairer. What do we think about that?
Is it fairer, though? Is it fairer that the grand finalists, not in Division 4, you make the grand final, and look, Westbourne Grammarians are that far and above at the moment. Anything can happen in finals, as we know. But a lot of teams are fighting for the 2nd spot. Is it fair that they then get told with only 6 weeks to go that even if they make the grand final, don't bother?
I think it puts a big carrot about winning a premiership on the table. The only thing what I understand is if you look at the history of sides that the progression that you make, the 2 grand finals from Division 4 have had pretty good success in recent years going up. Hawthorn and West Brunswick are 2 teams that come to mind that played off in a grand final in Div 4 a couple of years ago. They're both going great guns. So maybe that was the balance why they decided to go the way they went.
You do find occasionally, not more than occasionally, that the side that loses the grand final but gets promoted generally goes better than the actual premiers from the year.
An interesting one. On to the 4 questions. I know we've spoken a lot about a few issues today, but we've still got the 4 questions to tackle. Nick, you open the bowling.
Andrew, mine's for you. Should there be a double bye instead of the 3-bye weekends?
Yeah, if this is for the Premier sections, and I think absolutely. I think it was trialled last year. I don't think we have enough evidence to suggest after only 1 season of trialling the double bye. Of course, we've got a situation where we've got 1 more round of footy in the Premier sections, and this is to orchestrate the final scenario where use of grounds is an issue and to have the Premier sections finishing a week after the divisions. I think definitely we should have gone double bye. Players are taking holidays at this time of the year anyway, and it's affecting results. Let them have 2 weeks off and they'll be back better than ever. For you, Nick, are Old Scotch destined for a 2nd year in Premier B?
Quite possibly. They're obviously not flying at the moment. They're still in 3rd position on the ladder. They haven't won a grand final for over a decade.
A final?
Over a decade. They've lost 5 to 6 straight. I don't know how many exactly. They've lost 5 to 6 straight. Bo Morris and St Bede's are flying at the moment. And if they do finish in 3rd, they only get the 1 chance. They don't get the double chance. So it's going to be very difficult.
They're going to have to win 2 finals at this stage.
They're going to have to.
Mine's
for Brenton. Tom Sullivan. Now, we all know Tom Sullivan's a star Premier. He's missed a couple when he went over his ankle in the Big V game. Can he still win the Woodrow medal?
Of course he can, because who's going to take votes off him? He'll possibly got 4 BOGs of the 11 games that he's played. He's been in St Bernard's 8 times out of those 11 games, so he'll be well and truly up there, and you'll be chuffed, won't you? If he gets up there, you will.
I'll be genuinely stoked.
Final question, Brenton.
For you, Andrew.
Yes.
Can De La Salle miss the finals?
Well, yes, they can.
They
of course.
can,
I
but
think
will they?
Any one of 6 teams in the top 6 at the moment can miss the finals, I think. That's how tight it is. I don't think we can do it. Looking at their run home, they've got 3 of their last 5 at home. They finish with Old Carey in round 18. They might need that to secure a spot, but their other games are tough. They've got Blues away, St Bernard's at home, who are trying to avoid relegation, Scobbs at home. That's just why this is such a great
It's
competition.
fascinating. We were talking about them in OT and T's probably 4 or 5 weeks ago as the top 2 sides, and now they could.
Well,
find
Tees are still second.
well, sorry.
They're going all right. They're back in winning ways. On that note, we'll wrap it up there and say thanks again for joining us on the Tragics. We'll see you again soon.